occasionally, New Glorious Dawn Awaits will pop into my
Ooh.
head and
Oh, yeah,
everything.
what was it called?
I was
Symphony of
thinking,
Science?
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that track specifically was Glorious New Dawn. I was thinking about that
Glorious
not
New
too
Dawn.
long ago.
I was too, weirdly. Just as 2-3 weeks ago, it popped into my head, and I was like, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, one of the things that you can do in Hades 2 is there are souls that are hanging out in else parts of the levels, and you can direct them back to where they need to go, and it's with a
Uh-huh.
little timed mini game where you use either left trigger or right trigger or both. And Scott was in the chat when I was playing once, and I found one of these guys, and I was doing the thing, and he's like, "Hang on a minute, let me teach you a TikTok dance." And so now every time I find one of these lost souls, what pops into my head is, "Give me a chance to do a TikTok dance. Give me a chance."
Oh.
And so I say it out loud.
Wow.
Also, hey Brian,
Yes, sir.
I just, because of what you just told us, that sadly I didn't record, I just texted Sam, all your base, base, all your base are belong to us. And I got, hey, in all caps.
Well, she's trying to get homework done and not be up until 1, so she's not going to be mad that I told you guys that. So, but hey, I don't know if there's a higher calling than step 1, become a dad. Step 2, torment your child all the time.
I thought that's why people had kids.
It's all in good
I
fun.
did. I always thought my dad was so weird that he lived to embarrass me. I was like, why? And now I get it. And maybe you get it, but you don't get the just fills me right up. Anyway, so
Oh my God.
let's talk about scary things that aren't parent. Well, maybe these are parent stories.
I mean,
A
parents
lot
are
of
scary.
a lot of fairy tales are morality stories, right? So
All right,
Yeah.
let's do the thing. That's almost 3 minutes for the people listening on YouTube, so that's fine. So here we go. Ow, jam! Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Manapool. This is episode 737 of the Manapool. Sorry, I had something caught in my throat there. I would like to begin this episode with a dramatic reading. The story is called Repercussions of Evil. There are people already going, oh no. John Stalvern waited. The lights above him blinked and sparked out of the air. There were demons in the base. He didn't see them, but had expected them, now for years. His warnings to... That's supposed to be Colonel, but it's spelled Cernal. Cernal Joson were not listened to, and now it was too late. Far too late for now, anyway. John was a space marine for 14 years. When he was young, he watched the spaceships, and he said to Dad, "I want to be on the ships, Daddy." Dad said, "No, you will be killed by demons." That was in all caps. There was a time when he believed him. Then as he got older... Then as he got older, he stopped. But now in the space station base of the UAC, he knew there were demons. "This is Joson," the radio crackered. "You must fight the demons." So John godded his Pulsma rifle and blew up the wall. "He going to kill us," said the demons. "I will shoot at him," said the cyber demon, and he fired the rocket missiles. John plasmid at him and tried to blew him up. But then the ceiling fell, and they were trapped and not able to kill. "No, I must kill the demons," he shouted. The radio said, "No, John, you are the demons." And then John was a zombie. Thank you.
Before you said a single word, somehow I knew you were gonna do that.
I've got nothing. Good night, everybody. We have reached the pinnacle of English language. Possibly all languages. I don't know.
And
I wonder how it sounds in French.
And Ben just popped up and subscribed for the 64th month and said,
Awesome.
John was the demons, in all caps, with 3 question marks. So, yes, this is Doom, Repercussions of Evil by well, it turns out a fictional author, a fictional fanfic author named Peter Chimera. Peter Chimera is a fictional character created by Tom White and is described as your typical fan fiction nut who never read anything more than 15 pages, has an attention span of about 6 minutes, depending on what he's eaten in the last 12. Despite having English as a first language, just can't figure out those pesky rules of spelling and grammar. Throw in the fact that he only has a vague understanding of the setting and characters in these stories, never proofreads, and never quite understood what the word plot really means. Now you have a pretty good idea about what's wrong with Peter Chimera. So it's an intentionally bad fan fiction from 2002.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because like it legitimately sounds like something that a young child who hasn't figured out how to tell a story yet would tell a story.
Yeah.
I kind of love it.
Yeah, and I just remember, no, John, you are the demons, and then John was a zombie, has been in my head for, what, 23 years? 23 years now. So, it's spread around the internet and is now a classic. But yes, hello, I'm Chewy. I'm the lead spook here. Can I say that?
Yes,
In
you
this
can.
context.
That has a bunch of different connotations, some of which are not cool. But I have these other spooky, scary nerds here. Dorks here with me. Who are you people?
I'm Brian. I'm the lead rambler tangent master of the group. And I really kind of like my evil laugh when I'm in an empty stairwell. I think it doesn't look like anything, but I think it sounds really good, but I don't know that I want anybody else to hear it. So take that as you will. Mwahahaha.
So wait, what's the point of an evil laugh if no one else hears it? Oh, that is evil.
See?
I'm Mike, and even though I don't do it on purpose, if I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing with my face and body language, I am a slightly scary person.
Slightly?
I'm being
And
nice.
And I'm Dirk, the greenest man alive and moral compass of the group. And I am that echoey, thumping noise that you hear in the stairwell.
The one that makes Brian do his laugh while he's in there?
Mm-hmm. You're like, is someone there? Thump, 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 thump. Setting the mood.
Dirk is actually freaking me out slightly. So yes, this episode was Brian's fault. So if you don't like it, blame him. And we're talking about the spooky stories that we love or hate, or that spooked us, or that absolutely didn't, like Repercussions of Evil.
The ones that made an impact on you, and then Chewie was a zombie years later.
Somebody,
I just
was it
Wikipedia'd
Renee?
that while you were looking it up, while you were reading it, and somebody made an animated version of the story.
Yup.
Nice.
I think on Newgrounds, right?
I think so. It's in the Doom fandom wiki, so
randomly, I don't remember how this came up. I think it was with Renee. Somehow eating babies came up, and I was like, oh, like my beard. And she just looked at me. I was like, never mind. It'd take too long to
He's
explain.
like, oh yeah, you weren't there for that joke.
Yes. Nobody was there for that joke at this point. But anyway, so yeah, that was a spooky story that stuck with me for all the wrong reasons, and it turns out it was on purpose. It was not Mike's beard that ate babies. Nope, it was me.
Mm-hmm.
As Brian so forcefully pointed out.
in a propaganda episode of the Manapool, yes.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I gave all of these guys horrible characteristics that would make them completely unvotable prior to 2016.
right.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about spooky stories.
Yeah. If you're all right, I'll go ahead and get started with the one that kind of inspired me to even think about this. When I was younger, I watched a cartoon, and
I watched a lot of cartoons when I was younger.
I watched a lot, but this
Dude,
one in
me too.
particular, this one has a very jarring tone shift, and it starts out really happy and all that, and I rewatched it, by the way, to get ready for this, because this story goes back a long time ago, but it was put into cartoon form. And I remember liking it, and the first, 2/3 of it are really kind of light and silly, and then all of a sudden it takes a turn. And it's still kind of a goofy cartoon, but it's not. It's a tremendous tone shift. And you can actually watch it if you have a subscription to Disney Plus. # not sponsored by Disney Plus. But you don't find it by searching for Sleepy Hollow. You find it if you search Mr. Toad. Because it was back in 1949, Disney put out a film that was the first half. It's about an hour, and the first half is The Adventures of Mr. Toad, which I think gave rise to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, but I never read that or wrote it. And then the second half is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow with Ichabod Crane. And in the cartoon always stuck with me, because in the cartoon Ichabod is not taken very seriously, and he's always eating. He's this super lanky, tall stick figure of a guy. The text even says he could be mistaken for a scarecrow, but like every scene he's like eating a giant turkey, like he's freaking Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, with the munchies. So maybe that's a subtext. But if you go back to the original story, it was written by Washington Irving, and it was published, I did a little research, in 1820. So over 100 years before the Disney film then immortalized it. And Disney, of course, makes things a little silly. But returning to the movies real quick, because this is how I was exposed to it as a kid. For the first 2/3, it's like, oh, look at silly Ichabod Crane, and he's trying to, get with this young lady, and you've got this Brawn Bones guy who's very much a Gaston type figure, and then it goes to Halloween night when he's riding home from a party, and it's just him, and there's all this ambient sound. It gets creepier and creepier until he figures out, oh, it's just the wind through the reeds and everything's fine, and then he's attacked by the Headless Horseman. And in the story, they kind of leave it ambiguous as to whether or not it was just Brom Bones just dressing up. But in the cartoon, it's pretty clearly seen as a spectral figure who attacks and nearly beheads Ichabod multiple times. It is super creepy, even in a silly sort of way. And it ends with yeah, maybe he got away, but he probably died. And I was like, as a kid, I'm like, I don't know if I should like this or not, but I think I watched it like a dozen times, so it stuck with me. But in the original story, again, I don't think there's any fixation about Ichabod being, eating everything in sight, but he is not a great protagonist. He is kind of a jerk, and he's very materialistic. He is still trying to win the hand of Katrina Van Tassel, but he's basically trying to win her hand because she's
her
rich.
dad's rich, right?
Because her dad's rich and she's the only child, and he's imagining when she'll die. And in the movie, he kind of sees the corn in her father's fields turning to gold. So there's something there about that, but it's still like, oh, and look, she's pretty, and oh, and look, all that. Whereas in the original story, it doesn't even seem to really go into, oh, he wants to be with her because she's attractive. He is materialistic as hell. Uh, so, and at the end of the story, it is also ambiguous. I do think that there's a bit more. It's a little bit more ambiguous, and it's kind of almost pointed toward, oh, Brom Bones was just making it up the whole time and was probably the figure, and he had the cloak pulled down, so it looked like he didn't have a head. In the animated feature, there is a part where Ichabod accidentally gets on the horse with the headless horseman, and he looks down into the empty space, and so it seems unlikely.
And pulls the best face.
Yeah. So unless he's like, oh no, it's Brom Bones in there, which seems unlikely. So I think this story always stuck with me because of the way it was portrayed in the film, and then when I was older, going back and actually reading the story itself. And I mean, Irving was a very good writer. You don't need my word on that. I also really enjoyed reading what was it? The guy that slept, Rip Van Winkle. If you actually read the text of that, it's a good read. But this has just stood out for me, and I know we've talked about in contemporary mythology that I think it's Ireland or Scotland has the Doulahan, which is another inspiration for the Headless Horseman. But you have a million zombies. You have Dracula and vampires, and that's really, really kind of interesting. Werewolves, but the Headless Horseman is kind of this unique figure in literature and how it's been portrayed. And if you have not seen the Johnny Depp Sleepy Hollow, I think it still holds up pretty well. I haven't seen it in a while, but I really enjoyed seeing that.
I watched it again a couple years ago. It takes nothing but like the most basic concepts from the original story and turns it into a weird murder mystery thing. But it's a lot of fun, and it's before Tim Burton jumped the shark.
Yeah. And does it even matter that the Headless Horseman is Christopher Walken when?
Yeah, that makes it better.
He's headless. Yeah. So I wanted to start off with The Legend of Sleepy Hollow because it's a classic story, and it has seen a couple adaptations, but I don't feel like it's been done to death. What were we gonna say, Chewy?
Oh, I first saw the animated version. I never saw the entire thing for a very long time. I'm talking like adult, very long time. But the scary bit was featured in Disney's Halloween Treat, which was they had a couple versions of this, it turns out, because Lex, who is I think a year or two younger than me, had a completely different version than in her head than I did, which always weirded me out. But it was like a compilation of Disney stuff that was horror themed. You know, the one where Donald's kids are trick-or-treating and Donald is a dick to them, surprise, and they find a witch to help him get revenge. And the Night on Bald Mountain scene from Fantasia. And the scary bit of Sleepy Hollow. And so as far as I knew, for a very long time, that story started with him on the horse, leaving a thing, and then ended with the pumpkin being thrown, and that was it. But that's all you need. Like, all of the rest of it is set up that doesn't really matter. As far as the horror is concerned.
Yeah.
Like, all you need to know is there's this dude out walking and he gets spooked, and then he continues to get spooked, and then he gets seriously spooked, and then he gets attacked by a headless guy with a sword. Like, oh. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, it is a very hard recommend. I'm sure if you don't want to mess with Disney Plus, I'm sure it's on the internet.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
It's probably on YouTube. Like,
if you go on Disney Plus, you can also watch the first half, which is Mr. Toad's Adventure, which I'll probably go back and watch at some point, but I kind of skipped over to get to this part to make sure I remembered it correctly for the show.
Oh, it is. It's on... What is this channel? Tinfoil Hats and Rabbit Holes.
I like it.
And it looks like it's the whole thing. Cool. Oh, you know what? Oh, I'm logged into the wrong account. Never mind. I'm gonna bookmark that, but I'll find it later. Anyway, but yeah, Sleepy Hollow is a good one because it's... I've only read the original story once, and it was a very long time ago, but it holds up, or at least it did when I read it a long time ago, But the various adaptations, like Brian said, it hasn't been done to death. To my knowledge, it's only been done twice. Once as a Disney cartoon, and once as a Tim Burton murder mystery. That's pretty diametrically opposed. Wait, no, wasn't there a Sleepy Hollow TV show or something?
I think you're right.
Yes, there was.
I heard that the premise, I think I saw the first episode a million years ago, and I saw maybe the second episode, and that was about it. And I generally enjoy some of these shows like Grimm or Once Upon a Time, but I think the premise is, of course, it was real, and Ichabod Crane comes forward in time to try to help people with supernatural blah blah blah. And I think I followed up on it years later to be like, hey, I remember that show, and I think it got some flack because Ichabod Crane partners with a African American female police officer, and she was kind of the lead. And after maybe half a season of the first season, stupid heads were like, why are we watching this with the one lady, So she was kind of relegated
you
to
can
a side
say black,
character.
Brian.
I know, I was just gonna point was that they're dumb and ignorant, and so I think she was relegated to a minor role because people wanted to see the white guy as the main character. And this is based off of what I heard. That was not me watching it, so, which is too bad when stupidity gets in the way of creative writing.
Oh, and she left at the end of the third of 4 seasons.
Third of 4, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd completely forgotten the show existed because I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone that ever saw it. Huh.
First episode was all right. That's all I can say about it. So what's another scary story that someone's... I can't think. Yeah.
I've picked a H.P. Lovecraft story because I love H.P. Lovecraft short stories. Like Scott, my oldest still friend, discovered Lovecraft and was like, holy crap, dude, this is crazy. This is in the days before, internet. So he had called me and he's like, I'm just going to read you this story. And I was like, okay, go for it. And Scott has a very monotone and soft voice. And which has always been a problem with us because I'm forever like, what was that? But over the phone, he read me. This is not the story I want to talk about, but he read me the story. What's the name? Is it Dagon?
Yeah, that was short enough to read over the phone.
Yeah. And then, like, Dagon itself is fine, But right at the end, spoilers, it's written in first person, and at the end, the narrator decides to end it all by jumping out the window because he hears the weird fish people or whatever coming after him. This is like every short story by H.P. Lovecraft, so when I say spoiler sarcastically, that's why. They all are first person and the narrator decides to kill himself. But right at the end when he's like, the window, I heard like a on my window in my bedroom. And I was like, and it was, it wasn't like super late, but it was late enough at night to where that, So I am not brave enough to just throw open the window and look to see what's out there, because for the longest time, I've had this weird, or when I was a kid especially, I had this weird fear of opening up, the curtains and looking out and seeing something looking back at me. And I was like, So I grabbed like a bat and went by and I flipped on the front porch light, and because we didn't use the front door at the house, there was crap in the way, and there was no walkway to it. So we just used the carport door. So I flipped on the front light and ran by the parents, or mom, I think. I don't remember if the old man was home. He's a truck driver. He was frequently not home. And mom was like, where are you going? I'm like, I just heard a sound outside my window. And I grabbed a bat and ran around, and there was nothing in the bushes. Not even a spider. There was a spider that lived a big riding spider that lived in the bushes right outside my window for a couple years. Weirdly. I don't know if it was the same spider, but but there was nothing there. And I was like, okay. I went back and called Scott back. I was like, dude, I don't know. There's nothing there. So, yeah, at that point, I was like, I'm going to look into this Lovecraft guy. And so the story that I want to tell you about is called Pickman's Model.
All right. I have never read a Lovecraft story. I think I, along with half the planet, has heard of Cthulhu, but I've never read any of them. So
yeah,
why
well,
don't
this
you
is not a Cthulhu mythos story. So
okay. So tell us
it's
about
just one of his creepy short stories. He let's see, where was this from? I've got the wiki page. Here we go. It was first published in the October 1927 issue of Weird Tales. Yeah. And it's about a painter named Pickman who he paints this just absolutely horrifying pictures of creatures and gore and monsters and it's like they're technically brilliant, but they're horrifying. Mm-hmm. And like the Boston Art Club kicks him out, and he's ostracized from the art community, but the narrator is a friend of Pickman who like Pickman disappeared at some point, but the narrator's telling a buddy about how once he went on a tour of Pickman's personal gallery of a bunch of stuff that would never get shown in any art gallery. And like the final painting, the paintings get more and more and more awful, and the final painting is this horrible red-eyed canine human thing that's chewing on a person. And he's like, good Lord, man. And Pickman hears a noise in this story that the storyteller is telling in the story. And he grabs a gun and like runs out to go check on the noise. And there's like a little piece of paper sitting there that's attached to this painting that's all rolled up, and just casually hanging out. He picks the narrator picks it up and unrolls it, and he picks it up and then he hears gunshots. Yeah, and he stuck it in his pocket. Just not thinking, like, geez, what was that? And he comes back with his gun smoking. And he's like, there were some rats. And he's like, oh, okay then. And later he pulls it out of his pocket and unrolls it and finds that it was the subject of the painting that he was painting from, but it was a photograph.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And the implication is that he
Everything he was drawing was
something he had seen,
including the last horrible thing.
Yeah. And
That's great.
Obviously, me telling it to you like this doesn't do it justice, but it's a fun one. Apparently, I did not know this. It was adapted for television twice. A 1971 episode of Night Gallery, which was an old, horror anthology thing, and a 2022 episode of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, starring Crispin Glover and Ben Barnes. I need to watch that.
I did not know that was a thing that existed.
I didn't either. So, yeah. But, I actually did 1 year in high school. We had to do some sort of, English project about short stories. And I picked Lovecraft, and I did 5, I think, Lovecraft short stories, my favorite of which was Pickman's Model. There was another one that's got a similar thing, The Music of Eric Zahn, that is a similar idea, but instead of art, it's music. But it's good, and it's jarring, because at the end it's like, it was a photograph from life, and that's the end of the story. And I went, "What? Wait, what? What was hang on."
Yeah. The endings of a lot of those are really jarring and punchy, because a lot of them were published in newspapers and pulp magazines and things.
Exactly, yeah. But like I said, it's one that stuck with me to where now, 25 or more years later, it's the first thing that popped into my head when I was like, what's a story that scared me that I really want to talk? Oh, obviously Pickman's Model, duh. Where is this Cabinet of Curiosities?
Was it a Hulu thing?
Here we go. It is on Netflix. What? Oh, dude, I'm gonna go watch that episode as soon as we're done here.
Cool.
Episode 6 was Dreams in the Witch House. Hey, look at that.
Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. I should really watch the whole thing, Ben says. Oh, I mean, I probably will, but I'm going to watch Pickman's Model first. Because I assume that they're not related. They're not related episodes. Since I think it's an anthology. But maybe it is. Either way, I'm still going to watch that one first. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I love all kinds of Lovecraft stuff. Weirdly, most of his later, like, the Cthulhu mythos, as it's come to be known, a lot of it was written by other people.
Yeah.
Derleth and
August Derleth had a pretty heavy hand in a lot of it.
Yeah, Derleth was the main guy. But I've got, where are they? Nope. Okay, they're in that bookshelf. Oh, there they are. I've got 4 collections of Lovecraft short stories.
I'm pretty sure I have the same 4.
Each. Well, 3 of them are obviously from the same publisher. The other one is something else. And then I've also got his. He wrote like a essay called Supernatural Horror in Literature, which I've got in printed form over there.
It's good.
It is, yeah. I read through it once a very long time ago. Like when I went through all of my books and took a bunch to the used bookstore to make, bookshelf room, I kept those, including Supernatural Horror in Literature. So, but yeah, everyone knows. Yeah, he's a racist and blah 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 blah. Whatever. He's dead now. It's okay.
Yeah.
You can read his stuff. And apparently, I've heard conflicting stories, but I have heard the stories that he was getting better about that in his older age. Like a bunch of these were written when he was young. Well, younger, not young.
Yeah, I think he did get a little better, but not like completely. And like during his life, like even his contemporaries, his peers thought he was weird and backwards and funny about things.
He was extremely weird and backwards. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. He's dead now, so he can't open his stupid mouth anymore.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter.
Well, enjoy the art, even if you don't celebrate the artist. Da 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 da. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a Joss Whedon works fan, so I get it.
Exactly. Yeah. We've already mentioned Johnny Depp. And I'm going to mention another problematic author later, probably. So,
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
I have a guess.
So, yeah, that's...
I don't have a guess.
I highly recommend some of the more... Like, the more famous stories are more famous for a reason. It's because they're better. Like, what are the famous Lovecraft short stories? When I do a quick Google search, I get The Shadow over Innsmouth, that's a good one. The Call of Cthulhu, that's a good one. The Rats in the Walls, that's a good one. The Dunwich Horror at the Mountains of Madness, The Color Out of Space, yeah. The Music of Eric Zahn, Pickman's Model, hey, look at that. 4th row. But yeah, there's a reason that these are the more well-known ones. That's because they're really good. So you could probably find them online for free if you ever really want to see what everyone's talking about.
They're all in the public domain. They've been in the public domain for a long time.
Oh, they are?
Uh-huh. I think it might have been something to do with the original way they were published.
Oh, you might be right.
So they've been in the public domain for a very long time.
Okay.
Yeah, so
If I understand it right.
Now you can write your screenplay about Cthulhu teaming up with Winnie the Pooh and eating all the honey.
Oh my God.
That's right.
I hate you. So there you go. Ben says probably on LibriVox if you're so inclined. I don't know what that is, but it's probably a place to get public domain stories.
Sounds like a books on tape place.
It kind of does, doesn't it? But anyway, so have any of you guys, I mean, I assume that Mike has read any Lovecraft, and Brian said he hasn't. How about you, Dirk?
No, I have not. Although I'm pretty sure I have it on my wish list from Audible. So at some point I'll download all of his total works or whatever it is that I've got on my wish list and give it a listen.
Oh God. My first experience with it was it being read to me, and I don't know about that.
I got about for the Sherlock Holmes thing. I think I'm about 5 or 6 of his books in.
Nice.
Before I was like, yeah, I need a break from Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, you can only listen to someone doing cocaine for so long before it gets old. Anyway, so who's next? Dirk, what you got?
I'm gonna laugh because my stories are ones that I either remember when I was a kid, or ones that I stumbled upon and then was like, "Ooh, what's this?" and watched all the stuff on it. But so the guys will remember this, and for those of you that don't know, you just need to go find some episodes, and you'll understand. Let's see if the boys know. So it was a show that occasionally told UFO or ghost stories, but that's not what most of the episodes were about. Can you take a guess as to what the show was?
X-Files?
Unsolved mysteries.
Yeah, it's got to be Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack.
It is Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah. Remember when
See, I
Robert
didn't see
Stack
that.
was a serious actor, and then he was in Airplane?
He was chosen because he was serious.
Exactly. That's why Leslie Nielsen was chosen to be in the Police Squad stuff and the Naked Guns, was because he was a serious actor. It's weird how that works.
So the specific episode I remember was the one about Gettysburg. And there were 3 stories that they talked about in the episode that I remember very vividly. The first story was about, I believe it's Gettysburg University, that there was a girls' dorm, and there were some girls that were in their dorm room doing like studying, talking, whatever it was, and they heard a tapping on the window, and when they looked out, there was a little boy who was blue. And
Did he have a
they
horn?
looked, do what?
Nothing. Bad joke. Sorry.
So, but they like kind of freaked out and everything, and then the boy just kind of disappeared and everything. Well, when they inquired about this, what they discovered was that long ago, not related to the Civil War itself, but the house, the dorm, used to be, I guess, someone's residence or something, and had been converted into a dorm. And what had happened was they believe that a boy had gotten lost, and it was a bad snowstorm, and the boy had gotten lost down the snowstorm, and he was trying to get back into the house. And unfortunately, he had frozen to death. And what they saw was the ghost. It's believed to be the ghost of this little boy who was lost in the snowstorm, trying to tap on the window to say, let me in, I'm freezing."
Mm.
Another one was some tourists who were, in the, I guess, the Gettysburg Hotel, or they're like a building on site and everything, and it had an elevator, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to go up and everything," but for whatever reason, the elevator went to the basement. On accident, they went to the basement. When the door opened, what they saw was a medical hospital in use by Union soldiers. And what they saw was doctors performing amputation and triage, blood everywhere, people being, yelling, screaming. And then one of the doctors turned and looked at them and pointed his finger at them. And then that's when the door closed. And then after the elevator went up, they grabbed somebody and, was like, they went back down and opened up, and it's just a basement, storage basement. But again, that building had, during the Civil War, been a medical hospital for the Union where they treated the wounded. And the last were this family that was, decided they were going to do the Gettysburg Battle walk and everything. And so there's these tourists doing the walk, and they came across these, people dressed in their Civil War blues, and they're just out there marching around. There's people on the ground that look like they're, wounded, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so awesome." I mean, these guys are really going all out and everything. And the people are just marching as though that they can't even see these tourists, and so on. And they kept on going to the walk, and then they, found a site and everything. Like, hey, you guys did such a great job with these reenactments and everything. And the person just stood there aghast, and he said, "There are no reenactments today. Like, it's the weekend. Nobody's here to do that." And the people that we just came from, there were people dressed in Civil War outfits. And the park person said, "No, there are no people today doing reenactments. What you saw were the ghosts of Gettysburg battlefield."
And this was all
And
on
that was
one
the episode of
episode?
Unsolved Mysteries I remembered.
This was all on one episode?
Yeah.
Jesus
It was
Christ.
solely focused on Gettysburg.
Huh.
Pretty hard.
Oh, I mean, it was amazing. Like, I watched it, I'm like, holy moly. Gettysburg is like a haunted place. Like, if I wanted to be scared, that's where I would go. If I don't want to be scared, don't go there. Oh yeah, like
Creepy and
many of the ghost stories I remember were from Unsolved Mysteries, but not the ones after that one. I'll skip all the other ghost stories, but like if you ever wanted just to be like, okay, I just want to listen to a ghost story, Unsolved Mysteries was a great place to start.
Yeah, I used to get annoyed when Unsolved Mysteries, because Mom loved Unsolved Mysteries. I used to get annoyed when it was just missing person. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. Show me the aliens.
Yeah, I want to see the ghosts
Yep.
and the aliens and the good stuff. Like, give me some Bigfoot. Give me something. Not, oh no, this guy robbed a convenience store. Where is he? Who gives a crap?
Well, and there was something where, like, there's all these big shows coming out, and they spend all these monies on the budget, and they realize, that the highest grossing, or the show that got the highest viewership for the longest time, was Unsolved Mysteries, a show that literally it has like a bare minimum budget. Like,
Yeah.
the most money they ever spent were on actors to kind of act out what was going on, and that was where most of their money went. But I think they were doing like an episode for like $50,000 per
Yep.
episode at a time when, like, Star Trek or one of the other shows at the time, like, their base cost was like $150,000 an episode. So I mean, they were literally making episodes dirt cheap relatively compared to what it cost to make a show episode at the time.
Yeah.
Man. They brought it back several years ago. But, there's no Robert Stacks, and
And there were no spooky stories or anything like that. It's like, meh.
oh, there weren't? Oh.
I don't know. I never watched it. If they did, I didn't watch it.
Dirk, speaking with complete authority, is like. I like how you were like, no scary stories, and we're like, really? He's like, I mean,
I don't know.
probably.
Probably not. I don't know.
Can I get a Zomagot? Well, how about you there, beardy man?
Okay. One of the first things that I thought of when first brought this up was, in terms of like a story that stuck with me and had a real big impact on my imagination, was a story I heard when I was in elementary school, and I think it was a story that, it was a story one of my teachers told. I'm sure it was around Halloween time as part of some spooky thing. And I never went and checked up to see whether it was a real local ghost story or if it was just some other generic story that he attached to a local place. But it was a ghost story. It was, it was pretty short. It was just told to a class of 4th and 5th graders among some other, a few other stories. And it was about a local businessman who was, driving down the road late one night, a little recklessly, and on his way, he was crossing over a bridge, and there was a boy there fishing off the bridge. He hit the boy with his car, didn't stop, just didn't want to bother with it, just kept going. He was a bad guy, and he went home. Later on the next day, the boy was found. He had died, but he was like missing one of his hands in the accident. And they weren't able to figure out how it happened or who knocked him off the bridge. But the next night or several nights later, the guy, the businessman, he's at home and he hears a scratch, scratch, scratch at his door, and he's like, who is it? Who's there? Nothing. It's like scratch, 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 scratch. It's like, okay, who is it? Who's there? Nothing. Scratch, 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 scratch. And he opens the door, and then it's been so long since I've heard the story, and it was only told to me once. I don't remember how it was told from there, but what I think I remember is that the story ends with that guy being found in the morning, strangled to death, and there's a severed hand clutching his throat. Now, the thing was, the reason that this ended up sticking with me was because the teacher, in telling the story, tied it to a specific real place nearby that I knew. And it was like saying that the bridge that it happened at was a bridge that I knew exactly where it was on Highway 86, the old Allen and Sons barbecue. Brian, do you know what I'm talking about? There's a bridge that goes up a little creek there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but yeah.
And he made the point of like mentioning a spot on the guardrail where the metal was tore up, and there was this big gash in the metal on the guardrail, and that was real too, because I looked for it the next time I was in the car with Mom going down the road to Chapel Hill for whatever reason, and I saw the big gash in the metal on the guardrail, and I'm like, oh, it's the and I'm thinking about the ghost story, and tying it to a specific real place with details about the real world really captured my imagination for it, and really that's something that's really exciting and intriguing, and it stuck with me for a long time. And for years, every time we'd go down that road, I would look at the guardrail and see if I could see the red around the edge of the gash where they as part of the story they would try to clean it, but it was always turned red again. They could never wash the blood off or whatever. And yeah, it was that little touch that made it really stick with me. It was really neat to experience.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens a lot. There's actually an instance of it in the Discord when I asked about scary stories. Chifuji posted this about Morgan's Corner on Oahu at Hawaii and it's the story of the guy and the girl parked under the tree, and he hears a noise and he gets out to go check.
Yeah.
And she hears like the branches of the tree scraping along the roof of the car, and waiting for him to come back, she dozes off. And she wakes up the next morning to cops surrounding the car. and they try to get her to get out of the car and get away, out of sight without turning to look at it. But they keep saying, "Don't look, don't look." So she turns and looks and finds her boyfriend hanging upside down from the tree, split open, and his fingernails are scraping the roof of the car, not the tree branches.
Wasn't that one of the things that was featured in Urban Legend, the movie?
That's one of the variations I've heard about of the Hook murderer story. And someone in the chat, last 1031 in the chat, mentions the version of that, talking about the story I told. The version of the story that they heard was that the hand was holding onto the passenger door handle, which is another variant that you hear of the Hook murderer.
I've always heard
story.
The hook hanging on the door handle, not the hand. Oh God! But then that's a different story than the one you were telling anyway. So.
Well, I mean, it could have been like some of these stories. They have a lot of similar elements. You can mix and match some, and some of them might just end up getting mixed and matched in the retelling for how people remember them.
So you guys have heard me talk before about the show Supernatural. Mike, yeah, well, I'm going to keep it brief, but here's the point, is that the whole premise, at least for a lot of the earlier seasons, that was on for 15 seasons, was the family goes around kind of doing like a ghost hunter sort of thing, except, they're not investigating, they're hunting ghosts and local legends and whatnot, to keep people safe while they're also looking for their father. And in the very first episode, this is as spoiler-free as I can get it because the show's been out for like 20 years, and this is episode 1, season 1, they mention that the apparition that they are hunting in a particular town is what they've decided to call it is a woman in white, and the way that they phrase that is to let you know that, hey, sometimes when a person dies and their spirit can't move on, it holds on for a very specific reason, to the point that you can actually categorize these, right? And so they were looking for a woman in that town. They were looking for a story of a woman that died after her husband had been unfaithful and kind of set her down this path, where now her spirit is hanging out. It'll appear to young men and try to tempt them into being unfaithful with the ghost and then kill them. And so I like that because it goes to show that you have these stories that have a very common foundation, but then they have like the local flair. Like Mike points out this location that's specific to where he was, but in another spot where they have that same story in another city, it's like, oh yeah, go down 109 and take a left and it's right there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the local flavor.
Yeah, and that's why I brought this up, is because Shifuji posted this because the boy hanging from the tree scraping onto the roof of the car has been tied to Morgan's Corner, which is a place on Oahu, which is neat. I never paid much attention. I know we had some sort of supposedly haunted the bridge or something in, I think it was in Winston, but I don't know the specific story anymore. I seem to remember it being a woman in white type of thing. Yeah. And as Ben points out in the chat, basically every city has a lady in white story, right?
Yeah. So shall I go next?
Yeah, go for
it. Kind of going on through. Okay.
Actually, wait a minute. Let's do something else from the Discord.
Sure. Go right ahead.
A famous, most of the stuff that was dropped in the Discord when I brought this up are what's known as creepypastas, which is not spaghetti with eyeballs in it. It comes from copypasta, which is a thing that is copy and paste. It's a story that gets copied and pasted over and over and over. It became known as a copypasta, and then basically any creepy internet story could be classified as a creepypasta. And one that Violet dropped in here is one I'd heard of before, called The Russian Sleep Experiment.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay, I figured that if anyone knew about this one, it would be Mike.
Hmm.
It sounds familiar, but go ahead.
And it's got this. I'm just gonna. Oh, bless you.
Excuse
I'm
me.
just gonna drop this in the. Actually, I'm not gonna drop it in the. Let's copy image address. I'll drop that in the Discord so you guys don't have it looking at you.
Yeah.
Oh, nope, it turned into an image.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
But
Oh,
it's
no.
got this image that a lot of people are like, is that real? And I found someone that did like a deep dive and tried to find it, and it is actually a real photograph, but it's a real photograph of a creepy what's the word?
Creepy
Decoration.
Halloween prop.
Yeah, something like that. So it is a photograph, but it's not of a person. Here, I'll delete that for you.
I
Okay.
gave you I gave you something else to look at. It's just not as big, so you know.
But anyway, yeah, the Russian sleep experiment is longer than I remembered, but it's about Russian researchers who keep 5 people awake for 15 days straight without sleep, and then horror happens.
Hmm.
And,
They're given some kind of like medicine to keep them awake, or
yeah,
I don't
some
remember
sort
exactly.
of like what does it say
is.
here? Gas-based stimulant.
That's right. That's right. It's a gas. Hmm.
But yeah, it's like when I mentioned it, the last in the chat said "F that story," and exactly, yeah, it's just disturbing. It's not. It's been a long time since I read the whole thing, but I don't remember it being terribly like graphic. It's just disturbing.
Yeah, really worrisome.
And so
They do get violent at a certain point.
Well, of course. It's called the Russian sleep experiment. What would you expect?
That's racist.
And
Countryist,
oh,
statist.
Last said the bridge you were talking about, Lydia's bridge. That's the one is in Jamestown. Oh, okay, yeah. As soon as
that's
I read
cool.
Lydia's bridge, that triggered something in my brain. My uncle gave me a book on all the haunted places in NC. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Jamestown is not. It's in a different direction, but it's not very far away from here.
Yeah, that's much closer to where we are now. I grew up about an hour away, so maybe my teacher was just localizing it even more to just engage our imaginations more.
I think it's where Scott lives now. I think Scott lives in Jamestown.
Mm-hmm.
On Lydia's bridge. Ooh.
I have to under Lydia's bridge. Scott is a troll.
Okay.
But and then another one from the Discord. Ben posted a creepypasta. Posted in the Reddit, the subreddit r/nosleep, which is great for messed up things that will keep you awake. And it's just titled "I Hunt Mimics for the Government." And it's that's where it stops. It's of a decent length, not too long, but it's about mimic hunters for the government, who I haven't read this one yet, so let me go back to the Discord. Mimic hunters going after a church, and the world building is quite solid for a short story, he says. So yeah, if you want, short and punchy and creepy, go to the internet. There's a bunch. Like the Russian sleep experiment is one. You just have to say the name, and people who were around back then will be like, no. And And then finally, who was it? Was it 14? I think it was 14. Scroll up. Yeah, 14 said A Colder War by Charles Stross. And I had never even heard of this one. It's an alternate history novelette, which is a term I've never heard before. Novelette. By Charles Stross, written around 1997, originally published in 2000. The story fuses the Cold War and the Cthulhu mythos. So that's neat. I'm seeing
Say the title one more time. I missed it. I was typing a reply.
A Colder War.
A Colder War. Okay.
Yeah, it's I'm seeing just I don't want to read the plot synopsis because I want to read it, but I'm seeing the names Ronald Reagan, Saddam Hussein, Oliver North. So yeah, it's an alternate history that throws cosmic horror into the Cold War, which, I mean, sure, the Cold War had most of the other horrors in it. Why not cosmic horror too?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm gonna look this one up because I want to read this.
A Colder War.
Ooh, can I read it online? Does this work? It does. It's
Cool.
It's on the infinityplus.co.uk stories in the Internet Archive. Oh, this isn't terribly long either, if this is the whole thing. Oh yeah, okay, I'll read that later too. Sweet. So thank you, Pooligans in the Discord. So okay, now go ahead, do your thing, Brian. I wanted to be sure to get that in there since it was stuff.
Yeah, no, I had a couple things on my list, and some of them are, I think because I just read a lot as a kid, are very literature-based. But I thought I would mix it up a bit and have something a little more, either, you might consider this either urban legend, a little bit like some of the things that we've been talking about, or a little more like popular culture. I'm not sure, but everyone has heard, I'm sure, of Bloody Mary.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You take some tomato juice, you take some vodka. No. So, for those that for
Stick
some
a whole
reason
ass chicken sandwich on top.
yeah. Well, a chicken in a duck in a turkey, but yes.
Oh my god.
In honor of
John Madden.
he passed away, right? Yeah.
John
Look,
Madden died?
so didn't he?
I think.
I'm on it.
So, for those that may just not be as familiar,
he died in 21. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. For those that may not be as familiar with the legend, Bloody Mary is, I'm not sure, I didn't do as much research into this one, and I think it's another one where different places have different versions of how she came to be there, but she's essentially a banshee-like creature, a spirit of ill intent, and you can summon her if you stand in front of a mirror, and some of the legends say you have to, be standing on your toes. Some say you have to have a lit candle. But the big thing is she's like related to Beetlejuice, because if you say her name 3 times while standing in front of a mirror, and I think some of the legends say you have to be alone. So that's kind of the whole point is, daring someone else to do it when you're pre-teens or teens. Go in the bathroom, lock the door, and dare you to say it, and see how many people actually say it 3 times, or will say it 2 times and then be like, yeah, I totally said it a 3rd time. But supposedly then she will come through the mirror and either kill you or haunt you and torment you for the end of your days. And that
Or just
with
appear in the mirror and frighten you.
Yeah. some variation of that. And I don't think I've ever said it a third time. Maybe I'll do it when we're done. I don't know, but I think I got to 2, and I'm like, good bloody Margaret. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm a fairly logical person. When I was young, I loved believing in magic like a lot of people do, but I, starting at, I don't know, 7, 8, at some point I was like, yeah, I get it. Probably not gonna say a name 3 times in front of the mirror and then die. But
Did you ever see the Candyman movies?
no, I've heard of them. I've never actually seen it.
Oh, I highly recommend
They've
the
had a
first
bunch of
one,
them,
and then the
Didn't they do a remake?
yeah, not really. It's more of a legacy sequel. I watched those
Okay.
2 last year when I was doing the one scary movie every day thing for the social medias, and
Mhm.
it was the first one was way better than I expected, and the this legacy sequel was way better than I expected. So yeah,
Cool. But I do think there's a creepy.
I saw the first one when I was in high school, and I remembered some kids I knew in my like 3rd grade class talking about it way back when, seeing it at the time it released. And when I saw it in high school, I thought back about that and I was like, those kids should not have been watching this movie.
I think I saw it at a video rental place, and I've gotten a lot better, but I'm still not great about it. You guys know that one of my phobias when I was younger was bees. And on the box art for Candyman was, I think, somebody and a bee crawling on their skin. I think I'd have to look up the box art.
yeah,
Um,
bees are a thing.
Yeah,
With
so
Candyman.
I don't think I felt inspired to rent it. So is he? I guess from this conversation, is he like a Bloody Mary Beetlejuice type of figure? Speak his name and he shall appear, or because I don't know the first thing about it.
Yeah, he was a guy who was unjustly murdered and became a vengeful ghost. And then if you say his name 3 times, he'll appear and start killing people.
Yeah. Now, while we're on Bloody Mary, have you ever looked into why this works? Because it does. You see weird stuff.
Yeah, in low light conditions, especially if you're doing it where you have your eyes closed while you're saying it, and then you open them up and look directly in the mirror, you're going to see a flash of something that's probably going to be pretty disturbing, because in low light conditions, what you're looking at, your brain is just going to be making stuff up because it's wired to look for eyes and look for faces and look for shapes. And when it doesn't have a lot of information, when your vision system doesn't have a lot of information to go on, it'll fill in gaps where it thinks there's supposed to be something. So you're probably going to see something disturbing for a second after you open your eyes, looking directly into a mirror under low light.
That's crazy. So, wow. Somebody either set this up knowing it, or they just happened to be like, "Hey, let me say this thing," and it caught on.
Yeah, and also if you stare. Yeah, last in the chat brought it up. More the YouTube channel, The Modern Rogue, which I unsubscribed from them a while back just because I lost interest, but not because of anything they were doing. But they have a video. At least I think this is it. Last, correct me if I'm wrong. They have a video where they explain like what's going on, like psychologically and physiologically. And I think you have to like if you stare for a while. That's why you have to repeat the name, because if you stare at one point long enough in a mirror, then your brain will do weird things. Also in low light conditions, I think it has to do with the lack of light. So it's not just, turning the light on or opening your eyes. It's also like maintaining, stare at the one point. Like, have you ever done the thing where they're like, stare at this point and, whatever you see will disappear? because it's playing on the way that your eyes are physically built. They use 3 kings, but it's the same as Bloody Mary. I don't even know that one. I remember seeing this video like several years ago and being like, "Ah!"
Mary's story.
But now I can't find an explanation that's written on the damn internet about why it does this. And it's annoying me. But damn it.
So I did not know that about. I had some idea what Mike had talked about your brain filling in gaps, and I had actually studied a little bit about this in law school because we were talking about the reliability and surprising lack of reliability with eyewitness accounts when people see things that they want to see or expect to see. But I hadn't made the connection to this legend. I was just going to say that I do think that there's a spookiness to it as well about, like, you have to do it on your own. And there's a feeling of isolation with that. And you kind of, the intellectual part of your brain is like, I'm good. But the very primitive part of your brain that is like, I don't want to die, may have a hard time, finishing it. I'm like I said before, I guarantee you there are people out there that are like, even very smart people, very skeptical people that maybe didn't say it that third time. So that's why I wanted to have it on this list. Because it's a spooky story that people kind of still follow the legend about and still enact from time to time.
Oh, whoops. There was one more in the Discord that I missed.
Well, why don't you tell it to us?
It's a brief synopsis from Chifuji. He says, it's the story of the injured man. Basically, you hear someone in pain and distress coming from around the corner. When you see the person, they're usually bleeding from a wound in their stomach. However, the moment you lay eyes on them, you feel a sharp pain in your abdomen that spreads out into a dull, yet profound, throbbing pain. You look down at your own stomach to see that you now are bleeding from where the stranger once was. Looking back to where they were, they're suddenly gone, but the wound now seems to continue with you. And then he goes, thinking on it now, it kind of reminds me of It Follows. And just without the fun. You just have to look at someone. You don't get to do the scrumping.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing in It Follows is so many metaphors for STDs and male lack of responsibility with sexuality versus female. So, but the wound in the chest, that's a new one. I hadn't heard that one.
What? Have you seen It Follows?
Read about it. I don't think I've actually seen it the whole way through. Why?
Because it follows everyone. It doesn't matter if they're male or female.
Well, yeah, but isn't one of the main characters, like, she sleeps with a guy and then it's following her, and the guy basically slept with her to pass the thing along? Yeah, so and because the plot follows her from her perspective, so. But I haven't actually seen it, so.
So yeah, okay, I think that's everything in the Discord. Who else has another one? Do I have another one? I've talked about enough. Who else has another one? Don't all go at once.
I have another, but I also just talked. And
Dirk, you've been quiet for a minute. What you got? I think Dirk's been quiet for a minute because Bloody Mary got him.
Yeah, that's right. The next one comes from, I think maybe it was a Halloween or two ago that I was big into doing a lot of history stuff. And a series popped into my feed about haunted castles in Great Britain. And one of the stories was about a castle, Muncaster, in England. And in it, there are two tales that are told of events that happened in this castle's history. And the first one involves a individual by the name of Tom Skelton. So the history on Tom Skelton is he was a very malicious person. He was, I guess, a very arrogant individual, and definitely one who was a practical joker. But his practical jokes weren't like the put a whoopee cushion under your seat kind of practical joke. These were the practical jokes of if he was if you know someone, a passerby, were to say, "Hey, can you tell me where something was? Can you give me directions?" That if he looked at the person and thought, "I really don't like the way you look," he would direct them in the direction down the hill into a bog, and these people would end up drowning. So the story of him was there was the castle that it belonged to. The owner had a daughter, and the daughter had already been betrothed to an individual, to someone else, but she had fallen in love with the woodcutter who was employed there, and so they were having an entourage. They were together, in secret. Well, Tom Skelton found out about this, and the master of the house had said, "Well, I don't approve of this. I need you to take care of this." Well, to Tom, that meant he was going to take care of this. And so he called the woodsman up to the house and was like, "Okay, hey, hey, let's have some cider and everything." And so he got the woodsman just absolutely plastered. And then, using the woodman's tools, proceeded to cut his head off with the woodsman's own tools. He then dragged the body up the stairs and got rid of it. And he presented the head to the master of the house. And the history doesn't record what the master's reaction was to this, but it is believed that the daughter, when she found out, mourned and sobbed uncontrollably from this. And eventually she was sent to a nunnery where she died not that long after. The story comes to this because at Castle Munster, the staircase that goes up the castle, you can hear bump, 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 as though something is banging on the steps. And it is believed that this is Tom Skelton dragging the body of the woodsman, and the woodsman's feet hitting the steps as he dragged. And the sobbing in one of the tabard room at night, there is uncontrollable sobbing sound happening in this room. And it's believed to be the daughter sobbing over her lost love. The second story of Castle Munster comes from a time later by a person named Mary Brass. And she was a servant at the house. And she had, there was a love interest that she had an interest in. But another woman in the house also had an interest in the same boy. And so she hired some, let's say, assassins to come, like highwaymen, to come, and they came to the door and to get Mary and say, "Hey, your love interest, he needs to come see you. He's really sick. He's asked for you. We need you to load up in this carriage so we can take you to him." She loads up. She's taken down the road. They get her off of the wagon. They take her to a tree, and they put a pistol in her mouth, and they kill her. And then they wrapped her body, and they threw it in the lake that's not that far away from the castle. Well, unfortunately, the body did not sink, and it washed up on the shore about an hour or so after they dump the body. Well, they grab the body and they tie more weights, throw it back in, floats back up, down further down the stream where it was discovered. Unfortunately, it was a couple days later, so hard to identify, what was going on and everything. Well, the highwaymen unfortunately did not get to enjoy the rewards for what they did, because one ended up being involved in an accident, I believe, and the other one was killed in a scuffle, and so neither one of the highwaymen involved got to live for very long. The girl who was the jealous individual ended up having such a big scandal from it that she was exiled from the village and ended up drowning not that far away from where Mary's body was thrown into the lake. And the part of that is that the road where she died, a lady in white appears. And the tree that she was killed under, they cut the tree down and they found that the wood from the tree bled like red liquid. And even when they continue to cut it was like, all right, well, we're going to cut this wood up into planks and everything. The planks still bled red. And that is the two stories from Munster Castle.
Jesus.
Wow.
Interesting. I like some of the imagery there. Now I'm picturing, buying a table, and I'm like, why does this table always seem to be leaking?
And not like, water or sap, but what looks to be blood.
And I told you when you spill ketchup to wipe it off.
That's a heck of a lot of ketchup.
No, it's strawberry jam. Look how
Aw,
thick
jam.
it is.
Last said a stick breaks while Dirk is talking and everyone freaks out.
Well, that's because Ben pointed out that Dirk has a very good cadence for scary storytelling. So you do have a good voice for that. Kind of like Scott.
As long as I can remember everything. That was the part, is that I was watching it not that long ago, and so that's why I was like, oh, let me write down some of this stuff. So
Cool. I'm gonna have to go in just a minute, and if you guys want to keep going, I'm gonna be going a bit earlier. But I'm the last entry. Well, there's a number of other ones that I could mention. The last one is probably, as much as I love Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow is a lot of that is based off of my experience with the animated, then leading me into, oh, let me read the other. This is a story that actually has been adapted many, 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 many times. But believe it or not, I read the novel when I was probably way too young for it. I devoured books when I was a kid. Just nom nom. And then I saw some movies. Probably the first one I saw was the Gary Oldman one with Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder.
yeah, I know what one you're talking about.
Yeah, Renee just watched that not long ago, and I came in for some bits of it, and I was like, man, it's a goofy ass movie.
Some of it still
Such
holds
a
up.
good movie, though.
I mean, Gary Oldman is one of the best actors on the planet. I will fight you if you disagree, but I don't know that many would. But some of the special effects don't hold up as well. So, but yeah, I read Dracula, the novel by Bram Stoker, before I saw any of the adaptations. And unlike Sleepy Hollow, it kind of has been done a little bit to death. But I'm okay with that because the core story still holds up. The novel was published at the end of the 19th century. It was 1890, or to Wikipedia. 1897 was when it was published, and it has been in, because of a copyright error, it has been the public domain for forever. So every Castlevania boss, every movie can use Dracula if you want. You can even have Nicolas Cage play Dracula. Wouldn't that be a trip? I haven't seen Renfield yet, but I heard good things.
Yeah, Renee said it was
Um,
good.
But so Dracula's interesting because the entire book is written as a series of communications. A lot of it is people writing each other. Like it starts with Jonathan Harker, who goes out to see Dracula. He's called out to Transylvania to try to facilitate a land deal in London, and he's writing his fiancée, "Hey Mina, I'm in this castle. It's kind of cool, but you may not hear from me for a while. Okay, bye." And then the characters send letters to each other. It reminds me a bit, looking back at it, of like a Greek play. You If you ever watch an original Greek play, most of the action, they didn't have fight scenes. They had actors show up later and say, "Man, that was a crazy battle." They would tell reenactments, and that kind of is what this feels like a bit here, because everything you're hearing is essentially a retelling from the perspective of different characters, and it's not just Jonathan. A lot of characters have these letters, and it's
Yeah,
and
what is it called when it's a series of letter and an epist?
Yeah, we got it in the chat. Epistolary.
Oh, I didn't have chat up. Epistolary. Yeah, there we go.
And so it's like found footage back before there was such a thing as footage. So and a lot of, I mean, Dracula is such a classic story. One of the modern masters of horror, Stephen King himself, who I've read a lot of his works on, I'm not even all of them, talks about his influence. I don't, not in the time I have left on Earth, but I've also read some of his other works, including the book he wrote called On Writing, and he talks about how formative reading Dracula was for him as well. He also read it at a young age. He read it, and then later it was kind of like for him the blueprint for how he saw other literature. Like when he read Lord of the Rings, he's like, "Oh, Sauron is Dracula, and the Fellowship is, the investigators and Van Helsing, and they're gonna go, So he drew all these comparisons because that is how his mind immediately defaults to that. And I don't think it, as much as I love the story, I don't think I look at it quite the same way. All this respect to Mr. King, but I see where he's coming from. Is it's so archetypal, and it's fascinating because for us it feels like an ancient work, but it's a little over 100 years old. There's a lot of stuff, like this Legend of Sleepy Hollow is older than that. Frankenstein, I believe, was published before this. So in the grand scheme of things, Dracula is not that old a story. But it is so, you can't say vampire now without at least somebody, 6 out of 10 people, 7 out of 10 people immediately go, "Oh, Dracula," because that he is the archetypal vampire. And it's funny because there have been so many different legends about vampires and strengths and weaknesses and over centuries that Dracula kind of takes a lot of that, and then it distills it, and that this kind of becomes the template. Think about like zombies. There's been how many different variations on zombies in different cultures, but after Romero and was it Night of the Living Dead, that kind of defined, oh, by the way, this is what a zombie is, that it set the standard. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So But Dracula will always have a place in my heart. I think I've mentioned on previous Halloween-y type episodes that vampires in general are one of my favorite monster types because they can remain intelligent, and they have lots of cool, shape-shifting abilities and whatnot. And I just thought the whole drinking blood thing as a kid was kind of metal. Although then the first time I cut myself after eating Dracula and I taste it, I'm like, this is gross. I need to stop eating all of these coins because yuck. But I thought they were pretty cool. So
So one thing that I always enjoyed about Dracula was um,
his
a
good looks.
perspective of the book and why it did so well. Because, like Brian said, it takes place in Victorian England.
Hmm.
And one thing of note is part of why it became so popular was Victorian England was very class like you're in your social class, and there was very little mobility. And so there was a set culture of this is how you marry. You're not marrying for love, you're marrying for status, so you can move around and all this. Marriage for love was still not a thing really at that point. And so in it, it's a story about like lust. That was one of the characters of vampires is they're the ones that go in and they seek, they lust after something. So it's almost like it was a trash novel kind of at the time because, he goes in and he's like, "Oh, I want Mina. I want," and it's stuff that at that time it's like, oh, he's doing something that's so sinful, so anti Victorian standard and everything, that it was kind of like risque at the time,
Hmm.
which again is part of what made it such a draw. It was so out of the norm for people at the time of what the expectation was.
Yes, I agree completely.
Hmm.
And so, as I alluded, I'm gonna have to go. I have to see where Sam is at with homework, and I want these guys to continue the conversation if they feel up for it. I'm gonna try to get through my final thought because I have a couple things I want to say. I have a happy part, a sad part, and then I'm going to end with a happy part. Happy part was that we took another vacation. We actually got a very discount rate on another Disney cruise. We've never done two in a year. This is insane. But so we took another cruise last week, and it was awesome. And while on the cruise, I saw Tron Ares, and I know people were like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." I liked it. I thought it was pretty good, and it makes me want to go back and see the first two Trons again. So that's the happy part. The not happy part is that on the last day of the cruise um before we were back, we had boarded JJ and Apollo, our dogs, at a local boarders who, if I didn't love them before, they went above and beyond, and I will always trust them. But we got a text that they had tried to reach us because we were international. We didn't have our phone set up. And we got a text from Mike that apparently Mike was set up as our emergency contact before mom and dad moved here over 5 years ago. So thank you, Mike. Mike had said, hey, they contacted us. Apollo is not doing well. So they took him to the vet. And I'm not going to go into the whole process, but they were able to relieve it, and he went back to the shelter and they said he was doing much better. So that was on Wednesday. On Thursday, we came back and we were just going to pick him up on Friday, but we went right to the borders. So this was at about 5 or almost 5, and I called the vet. They stayed open for an extra hour and a half for basically just me and Apollo. And there was an ultrasound, and they said we have to be careful because we're not ultrasound specialists, but this, based off their training experience, looks like a tumor. And we started him on some medication, but she was very clear. She's like, if this is what we think it is, this is not curable. It is potentially treatable, but it's more keeping him comfortable at this point. And he was better on Friday in that he could move around, but he was still not himself. But he was doing a little better as far as we could tell. But he also wasn't eating, which is not a good sign. So on Saturday morning at 8, I took him to the after hours vet in Greensboro on Friendly, and took him, and they got the notes and all the test results from the regular vet. Because originally they're like, yeah, we can do some tests, but then they saw the test results and they're like, this is exactly what they think it is. They could hospitalize him and keep him with a catheter in like for the next 2 days to basically get it to the point that he could see a specialist on Monday to run more tests, which would probably then lead to a biopsy, which would probably lead to da-da-da-da. Or we could say he's relatively comfortable now. You can say goodbye now. And I called Carrie and Sam, and it was a very difficult conversation to have. And I'm sorry if I'm going into too much detail. And having to say goodbye to a vet, to a pet, is always the hardest part. It almost makes you wonder, like, if it's worth it. And he was only 6 years old, and poor boy had health concerns his whole life. We got him from a rescue, and he needed hip surgery within a month of us getting him. And then he had crystals in his urine. Also, poor boy had so many health concerns. But we talked about it, and part of me really wanted to wait, but part of me said, I don't want to see him be in pain, and this is just going to keep happening. So we made the hard decision, and I actually just brought his ashes home today. So I don't say this to be a downer. I say this because these guys have seen him, and you've seen him kind of grow up a bit, and he had behavior problems. But at the end of the day, I think it's because he had a hard life before we got him.
Yeah.
The rescue said that they found him being dangled over a highway by teenagers, which makes me very upset. And the whole hip thing could have been biological, or it could have been due to abuse or something like that. So I think he was a poor dog that was always afraid, and we imprinted on him, or he imprinted on us, however that works, and he would have died to protect Sam. And I think he didn't trust anybody else. He grew to trust my parents. He kind of liked Mike, but kind of. It was always a thing. But he's not in pain anymore. So that was a really hard thing to do. And then because I don't want to end, I want to take a minute for that, because I know that two of these guys are going to appreciate, and because I know we spent, was it the last episode talking about D&D? I'm going to try to make this, I don't want to take forever with this. For Sam's birthday, we still were able to do this. That was on Saturday. On Sunday, we did go, and we had a great time. There's a show called 20-Sided Tavern, and they were performing this last weekend at our local theater in Greensboro, the big theater, the Tanger Theater. And we went in, and it's a D&D thing, and I think there was a good crowd there, but it was not a full house, just because some people are like, oh, D&D or whatever. So we got free upgrades where they tried to move everybody down into like the orchestra type area. So we were all getting in really close. And it was awesome. You go in, they give you a sticker, and they give them to you face down. One is red, and it says, some people are good at pummeling and punching. One is blue and says some people are good at magic and something. And then one is green and says sneaking and seducing. And I ended up with red, Sam ended up with blue, and Carrie ended up with green, which I'm going to leave that alone. You go into the theater. Yes, and you go ahead and register. You go on your phone, you scan the QR code, you go onto their website, and you register which team you're on. And then there's some questions that I thought were just kind of to fill the time. One of them, there were some questions just to fill time, and one of them was like, give a noun. And I was like, okay. And I put in I was thinking tomato, because they have this whole elaborate stage set up. And on the back screen, where they're able to put up images, it was going through the 6 characteristics from D&D, and it was relating to tomatoes. So like strength is your ability to crush a tomato. Dexterity is your ability to dodge a tomato. And wisdom is knowing that or intelligence is your knowledge that tomato is a fruit. But wisdom is your knowledge that tomato doesn't go in a fruit salad. So stuff like that. So I was like, tomato. Why am I thinking of tomato? Mike, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say the others. Like Constitution is your ability to eat a bad tomato. Charisma is your ability to sell someone on the idea of a tomato-based fruit salad.
Yes. Have you been to one of these shows, or is this
No, I've
just
heard the tomato thing before.
okay? So I just put in tomato. Apparently, some other people were asked for adjectives, but then the show gets going, and it's 5 actors. It's 2 DMs, which this DM setup was kind of genius because one of them was driving the story while the other one was looking up everything relating to spells and was making like all the rules decisions, or that they were kind of doing the co-rule thing, but one was really being the narrator and the other one was kind of filling in. So that was interesting. And then one player each for each of the red team, the green team, and the blue team. And when they went to go make decisions, like the red character could have been a monk, a fighter, or a barbarian. They put it to the group, and the red group got to vote on that. And they had pre-registered character sheets. We didn't pick out everything for it. And I do think that they have played some or all of these characters before, so it's not complete improvisation, but it's not all scripted out either. And then once we had the characters and then they chose the setting, we were off to the races, and it was hilarious. Even Carrie, who does not play D&D and has no interest in it, was like busting a gut at some of this stuff. There's a point where they're collecting magical objects. They collect some spectrographs, like glasses that let you see through things. At a certain point, they go to intermission. They come back and they're wandering through a maze. And one of the DMs like, you know what? You're gonna encounter one of these bad guys is a shapeshifter. So all of a sudden, hey, green guy, another bard comes out. He looks just like you, and they start complimenting each other. And then walks up to one of the other characters, and he's like, hey, there's, they're trying to make it out like the other one is the fake one, and the other guy is like, I have glasses that can see right through you, right? And the DM goes, we're PG-13, right? Is shit. Are you gonna have to bleep that later?
I mean, I am now, yeah, but I'm not gonna.
Okay, so she just says that, and it was the DM moment, the moment of like, I forgot I gave you that. So they kick the crap out of that character and continue on. It was hilarious. It was funny. And at the end, when the bad guy is shifting into his final form, the DM that's been keeping track of the stat sheets and doing the rules and the spells and all that says, okay, while we were getting set up, we asked you guys some questions. And like Ghostbusters, choose the form of your destructor style. You guys have chosen the form of the BBEG. And so our demon transformed into a gross, necromantic pumpkin spice latte.
Like you do.
And all of its attacks were foam or hot liquid based. And they ended up beating it by shoving a friendly ghost into it, which one of them was accidentally falling in love with and losing their sanity. It was a whole thing. And then banishing the ghost and taking the pumpkin spice latte along with it. It was amazing. And if the show comes to your city, I cannot recommend it enough. And so I just kind of wanted to end on a positive note. And it was great, and these guys were very good actors, and I recommend the show if they come to your area.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thank you. that is all I had. I've really enjoyed this episode. I know I took a long time with that final thought. I just want to get through the Apollo story and that story. If you guys want to keep going, I will listen to the podcast later to hear more spooky stories. But otherwise, I will talk to everybody later. I'm going to go check on my daughter.
All right, later, B. I guess we should probably just wrap up the episode. After, I love Brian to death, but after 20 minutes of Brian's final thoughts, it's probably time to just stop.
Probably.
Yeah.
So, I guess more final thoughts then. Do not spend 20 minutes on your final thoughts. I will kick you from the call. Don't all go at
For
once.
my
man.
final thought. For my final thought, just this month has been an incredibly busy month. Between, like, we've been talking about, changing schedules and all that good stuff because of trying to accommodate kids' schedules, and unfortunately, mine hasn't gotten any better. So, Trevor it wants to be involved in school, which is great, but that also means that, I think the only day he doesn't have stuff after school is Wednesdays at this point. Hopefully things will get a little bit better once winter rolls around, because he'll only have, well, no, it won't, because he has robotics. Never mind. It's not going to get any better. So, yeah. Being an adult with kids is fun. Sleep is for, silly people. And that's my final thought.
Sleep is, in fact, for the weak.
I didn't say weak. I just said silly people.
I am weak.
Thinking, sleep, that's something I need in order to function. And then all the parents are like, what? No, you can fully function without sleep. Just look at me. As you're trying to, like, hands are constantly shaking from, sleep deprivation.
Just think, Dirk, when you guys started having kids, you wanted like 12 or whatever the ridiculous number was.
Yeah. That didn't last long, did it? So, that's my final thought. Mr. Mike.
All right. There was another thing about the scary stories that I had thought up, but because we had run out of time and because Chewy had brought up some related things first, that's why I decided to go in a different direction. But also, I realized before we started the call that I couldn't remember the order that some things had happened in. Like, I couldn't remember how I first got introduced to H.P. Lovecraft's fiction and why. And I've been thinking about it more, and I think high school or early college, I might have, the first thing might have been just seeing a copy of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing source book on a shelf in Barnes & Noble and thumbing through it and briefly reading the Call of Cthulhu short story that was in it and thinking it was just really intriguing and just buying it just on a lark. That might have been it, the first introduction. And then it was after that I decided to, find out a little bit more about him and other connected authors and learn some more things. And I got myself some copies of some of those compilations that Chewy mentions. And the first one of the stories in those books that I remember reading was The Rats in the Walls. And it was just so different and so weird and so creepy compared to most anything else that I had read at that point. That, I sat there and read it like it was the middle of the day. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I was like downstairs in the dorm doing laundry. But I finished that first story, The Rats in the Walls, and I had to set the book down and just sit there and deal with that for a few minutes before I could do anything else. because it's about a guy he's just had this tragedy in his life. He moves from America back to a place in England where there's some kind of ancestral estate that he's inherited, that he decides to just go back, just move away, move back there, restore the old manor house, just live out the rest of his days there. He gets there, and the locals seem to be like kind of upset that he's restored the house and he's going to live there again. He starts to find out more about his family, and that the local people in the village just really hate his family, and there are all kinds of stories about some of them, and rumors, and like the last member of the family who lived there like killed everyone else and fled to America, and the people in the village regard that guy as like a hero. So there was some really bad blood between the villagers and that aristocratic family. He's kept up at night hearing rats scuttling in the walls. Sometimes it just sounds like a few here and there. Sometimes it sounds like a massive horde just rushing from the top of the house to the bottom, somewhere deep below. Through events in the story, he ends up discovering that there's a big, like pretty much a hidden city underneath the house. He gathers up some friends and acquaintances, and they go exploring down there. He comes to find out that his family had been like breeding human livestock because they were awful cannibals, and the reason that last member of the family killed everyone and left was because he just wanted it to end finally. Anyway, they're down there. They find out this horrible secret. The main character, he just loses it and murders one of his friends and starts eating him. Ends up in a madhouse, for the rest of his life, and raving about the rats in the walls. So yeah, I got to the end of that and I was like, oh damn.
Yeah. It's a good one.
It is.
Ben said, hate finding that sort of thing out. Yeah, I found out
That's the worst.
Your ancestors were cannibals breeding human livestock under the house. Yeah, that's a bitch.
So yeah, I think it started out with just getting an RPG source book on a lark because it looked cool, and reading the Call of Cthulhu short story was in there. But after that, the first one was the rats in the walls, and like Call of Cthulhu is a pulpy, fantastic story, but the rats in the walls is something entirely different in tone and structure.
Yup. Entirely different. So is that it for you?
Yep, that's it.
Nice. As for me, what do I have? So I finished Baldur's Gate 3 finally after just shy of 280 hours. That is not normal. Do not think, oh my god, I can't play this. It's not that long. I'm curious now. How long to beat? No, not Baldur's Gate. There we go. Baldur's Gate 3 says the main story should take 72 hours. Huh.
Decent adventure.
Completionist says 176. I did do a lot. I'm not completionist though. I did everything that I could find to do in my first run. So now I know well, now I don't feel bad about looking up. But where was that that piece of gear that did whatever? I can look up where to get that and not feel bad, for future runs, because I really want to try to beat it on honor mode, which is
Right.
the hardest difficulty, and you only get one go. If your party wipes, then you can continue, but it's not in honor mode anymore, and you have to start over. So looking forward to that. But I finished Baldur's Gate. It was amazing. Baldur's Gate 3, just in case I didn't say that. It was amazing. Everyone that wanted to play it except for me probably has, except for Brian. But I highly recommend it. It's so good. And I also rolled the credits on Hades 2, which is just the beginning, but I did those in the same day. That was cool. On purpose. Well, not on purpose. They both happened to line up to where my next stream would be when the credits rolled, and I said, I'm going to do those in the same day because I'm stupid. And so I streamed for a combined total of right about 10 hours to get both of those done. Don't know why I was tired when I went to bed last night. But yeah, Hades 2. And of course they just had a patch like today that changes a few things, and I'm like, oh, well, that would have been nice. Like in the pre-show I was telling the dorks that once you're able to do this one thing to get to the ending, you have to. Yeah, they removed the have to from the you're no longer required to cast this as soon as you can afford it. I'm like, oh well. I mean, I was gonna anyway, but the fact that it was like, do it, I went, oh, fine then. I guess I'll do it. But yeah, a lot of the changes had spoiler tags on them, so I didn't want to click on them because most of it is dealing with all the stuff from the point I'm at on. So I'm not going to look at any of that. But yeah, highly recommend both Baldur's Gate 3 and Hades 2. Also, another sequel came out that I haven't checked out yet, but Power Wash Simulator 2 came out today, I think, actually.
Oh, cool.
I'm still not done with the first one. I have 2 and like a 10th, maybe slightly more than that, levels from the Wallace and Gromit DLC left to do. And those have been fun. Lots of references to Wallace and Gromit things going on. And since all of the conversations in the game take place via text messages that pop up while you're cleaning, it took me way too long to realize that all the weird analog emoticons were Gromit. I was like on the 3rd level when, oh my god, that's Gromit. I was like, why is Wallace sending analog emoticons? This doesn't make any damn sense. No, that's Gromit reacting because Gromit doesn't speak because he's a dog. Way too long to realize that. I was like, clearly Wallace just isn't good at texting, I guess. I don't know. This is bizarre. No, he's a dog. Anyway, my own idiocy aside. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what the response to Power Wash Simulator 2 is. I don't know if it's going to be more good stuff or I don't think it happened fast enough to be called a cash grab. So I'm gonna wait and see some reviews because I love the first game, but if the second one isn't up to snuff, I'm not gonna play it. I downloaded the demo for 2, but I haven't gotten to it yet because it's me. But yay, streaming stuff. I stream all the time. I'm gonna get back to Final Fantasy VI finally now that I'm done with Baldur's Gate, and I've gotten through enough of Hades to where I don't feel I have to play Hades. No, I'm good now. I can mix it up with other stuff. Maybe. So yeah, come hang out. I stream on twitch.tv/themanapool. Most nights starting around 8:30 Eastern Time. And sometimes during the day. at 12:30. I don't know what to do now that I'm done with Baldur's Gate. That's what I was playing during the day for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
I might start a city in City Skylines, which is, the one that took over for SimCity when Max has crapped the bed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they released whatever their SimCity was that was horrible and buggy and didn't want to work unless you were online and all kinds of other issues. And City Skylines came out and everyone was like, holy crap, this is like SimCity I remember. And now with City Skylines 2 apparently crapping the bed, this other one has popped up to to take its place. There can be only one city builder. Apparently. But yeah, you can go to patreon.com/themanapool if you want to help support what we do. I'm posting odds and ends, getting caught up on those again, because as soon as I got caught up, I was like, yes, and then immediately fell back behind. But I'm working on it. I've gotten 3 or 4. I don't know if the last one's gone public yet. I'm spacing them out, so it's not just like, here's 6 at once. Blah.
Right.
So, yeah. Also, let me thank our mythic lifeguards. Al, Kim Ho, Scuzzo, Jake Jansons, Michael, who's that guy? Timu Hillas Haryu, Violet Moon, Jason Kaus, Casey, Jason Doan. Don't trust either of those. And the one in the middle was a ginger. I don't trust her either. ALK Alters and Andrew Odie. Don't I mean mythic fright guards? Oh my god, no. We're not going full out for the Halloween episode. We're just talking about scary stories. Boo this man. But yeah, I've also decided I'm not gonna do any sort of horror stream this year, because last year I did some of the, one of the most well regarded, critically acclaimed horror movies. Everyone's like, oh my god, Chewie, you should play it. And I did. Nobody came to any of the streams. So I'm just not going to bother this year. Just going to keep playing other stuff. If I do end up playing something scary, it won't be because it's Halloween. It'll just be because, I should play this. Ori and the Blind Forest. That was the other thing that I never went back to. I did exactly 1 stream of that and said, this is really good. And then never went back to it. I don't remember what I picked up instead that got in the way. Yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, so I got to go back to Final Fantasy VI, Ori and the Blind Forest over on Twitch. And then go from there. Yay. But with that, I guess we'll be done. So, this has been, I never actually said it. This is episode 737. Oh, I did. Right at the very beginning in the spooky voice.
That's right.
So we are an airplane now. Wee. But this has been episode 737 of The Mana Pool. Thank you all so very much for joining us, and don't be the demons.